Kids, hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Curiel versus Nontshinga rematch. And so if you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Curiel is 24-4-1 with 5 KOs and Nontshinga is 12-1 with 9 KOs. This fight is for the IBF World Light Flyweight title. The last fight between the two of them ended as a Curiel win via KO in round 2. This is in Curiel's home country of Mexico. Curiel's losses have come versus Hernandez in 2021, Velasquez in 2019, Mejia in 2019, and Valadares in 2018. And to speak about what I've just been saying there, so obviously this for the IBF World Light Flyweight title, like I mentioned. The rematch between the two, and obviously last time out it ended in quite shocking fashion. I mean, with Curiel going and getting this stoppage, which was completely unexpected, and Nontshinga had a lot of hype behind him, and I mean Matchroom were backing him, and he was seen as this next kind of light flyweight fighter who was going to be an amazingly good fighter, and he was the world champion, and Curiel came in and kind of stopped that and made a name for himself in a fight which possibly Nontshinga was overlooking and thinking of bigger fights in the division. But as the tough Mexican that Curiel is, he came in, put in a very, very good effort, and I mean managed to get a very impressive stoppage in the process, and really, like I say, made a name for himself, even though on paper he's not really seen as a big puncher, a big knockout artist. He managed to go and get this huge dramatic stoppage. Obviously, this being in Curiel's home country this time of Mexico, that might add a little bit of a different element. There might actually be a pretty big Mexican crowd. I mean, Mexican fans love their boxing, and they might be coming out to support Curiel in this one, and so that might make him want to prove himself even more. And I mean, Curiel's used to fighting in Mexico. I believe all of his losses have been in Mexican fights, and people look at fighters from their records, and obviously he's gotten 4 losses against, on paper, lesser opponents, but these Mexican cards, they're not easy cards to be on, and when they're these kind of small hall Mexican cards, they're very tough fights. Every single one of them are very, very tough fights to get through, and he's also been fighting at flyweight a little bit as well, and so he seems to be now comfortable at light flyweight, and I feel like this is going to be the weight where he does his best at, and I feel like for him to have gotten through all the losses and all the fights he's had in Mexico to where he is now, it's only made him a better fighter in the process, and now he is a well-rounded fighter, and he is now making a name for himself, like I've said. And if he goes on to win this next fight as the rematch, then there's huge possibilities in the way of bigger fights in the future for him. Also on this card is Lara versus Lujo, in which I think Lara will win via TKO in round 6. It's nice to see Lara back fighting. Obviously, he's coming off the fight versus Lee Wood where he lost, and he didn't look good in that fight at all. And like I mentioned, it's nice to see him back fighting again now, and he's now moving up in weight as well. And there was a lot of things that kind of went wrong with that last fight, and weight-wise, there was that dramatic thing with everything that happened there, and him not being able to fight for the title and being stripped of the title before he even got into the ring. And it definitely played a factor. Maybe it demotivated him a little bit. I don't know where his head at was going into that fight, but I feel like for this one, he's going to be hopefully back on best form again. And when he is on his best form, he is a very impressive fighter. And Lugo, I've seen some of his fights. I think he does get hit way too easily. I think he struggles to find range that much, and I think they can be countered, and I think Lara is definitely going to be able to find chances to hurt him, and with the power that Lara does possess, I think he's going to be able to get him out of there, and in quite simplistic fashion to an extent. But going back onto the main event, so Curiel going into this fight, I mean, of course, he's going to be more confident than he probably was in the first fight. I mean, now he knows he can beat this fighter, which was seen as such an amazingly good fighter. He now knows he can win. But as a fighter, I mean, he brings the pressure. He's got very good timing. He proved that with that one-shot stoppage, that he patiently waited for the whole time, cut off the ring very well with, and then chose that shot. He doesn't get bullied. He controls the centre. He's comfortable at this weight now, like I've mentioned. He's got a good high guard. He takes necessary risks. He is pretty relentless in the pressure. Not relentless in the way of constantly letting his hands go, but he's relentless in the constant just physical presence of him being in front of you. Like I say, he's patient. He picks his shots well. He can get into range well and is quite explosive in the process. He's got solid head movements, and he does also capitalize on any kind of mistakes. I mean, Nontshinga doesn't make loads of necessary mistakes, but he only really needed one opening Curiel to be able to land that just clinical shot, and so he shows that he does have, like I said, that timing is there very much so, and that power is there, and it's often the shot which you least expect, and the shot which you're least kind of in the right position to take is always the shot which is going to hurt the most, and he's proved that, and that was where the stoppage came from in the first place. Negatives about him, I mean, he sometimes does like to kind of block a shot or take a shot and then throw one back, and that can kind of get him hyped up a little bit at times, but he means he is then taking shots. He's definitely there to get hit. I mean, constantly in front of you, countering wise, as a good counterpuncher that Nontshinga is, he's definitely going to be there to be getting hit to Curiel. He kind of does rely on getting hit a little bit and kind of dragging you into a fight, and if fighters don't necessarily fight his fight, then that's when the game plan can be a little bit tough and difficult to follow for Curiel. He can be hurt to the body, and he can be there to be hit to the body. I mean, Nontshinga was very much going to the body and capitalise on that opening throughout the whole fight. He does walk onto shots. I mean, he can be outpaced as well. He's not overly fast. He, in my opinion, can struggle a little bit on the back foot, but he's the smaller fighter. Nontshinga, if he can possibly put him on the back foot, then that could be something. But Nontshinga was just so happy to sit on the back foot in the first fight. He didn't really try and impose his size or his reach really against him. He can overcommit a bit at times. He has a bit of a lack of a jab, and he is, of course, like I said, the smaller guy physically. So on paper, you should be able to kind of bully him, but like I say, he's difficult to move around the ring, difficult to bully, difficult to control. But Nontshinga as a fighter, I mean, he's the faster fighter, most definitely out of the two, and definitely the most more technical out of the two. You can definitely see that. I mean, in his other fights as well, that ability that he does have, that skillful, high IQ ability that he does have. He fights well in the pocket and at mid range. In my opinion, I don't know where you really want to be against Curiel. I mean, he's proven that at a mid-range he's explosive and can catch you when he comes in, but also in the pocket he does good work as well. But he was doing good work as well. Nontshinga, like I say, to the body in close in that first fight. He moves well. He can fight on the back foot or the front foot, but I would just like to see him fight on the front foot a little bit more in this fight. He's got a good sharp jab. He circles around the ring well. He wasn't moving necessarily badly, but it was just that one opening and that one chance, I could say, that Curiel capitalised upon. He counters well. He can outbox. He fights well under physical pressure, and he didn't really look out of control or out comfortable, if that's the right word of way of putting it, in that first fight. And he's got a good shot selection, and so, like I say, he's a very skillful opponent, just a very skillful fighter, and he's going to be still a very tough fighter to beat for anybody, and he is probably the favourite going into this fight, and I'm sure he's going to be wanting to rewrite these wrongs in the first fight and not be embarrassed as much as I suppose on paper he probably was, if you look at it that way, in the first fight. Negatives about him going into this one, I mean, mentally there might be a possible fear from Nontshinga of Curiel. I mean, now he's been stopped and been stopped in that fashion, there might be that possible fear of like, oh, if he gets caught with a shot now, it's like, oh well, he's proven that he can really put some damage upon me, and it wasn't really that long ago when they first fight. The demons might come back and be like, oh, okay, well, possibly he could do it again, and you don't really want to have that mindset, but of course that's something which is very natural to have. How good is his chin? That's questions which we're going to have to answer now. I mean, like I say, on paper, Curiel isn't an amazingly good, powerful puncher, but maybe Curiel is coming into his game a bit better, and maybe it was the timing, like I mentioned, or possibly Nontshinga's chin just isn't amazing, and so that's probably going to be tested again. He's got a bit of a lack of aggression, turning that aggression up at times, and that physical presence would be nice, like I've mentioned. He doesn't really plant his feet too well. When he does decide to do it, he can be pushed back, he invites pressure, he can be a bit too comfortable on the ropes, and when he's too comfortable on the ropes, even if he is out boxing, out counter punching, not really getting hit with too bigger shots, he's just sitting on there waiting on the ropes, and even if he is moving well on the ropes, it's still just sitting there waiting on the ropes and letting Curiel control that centre of the ring. And like I say, he's proven that he can cut off the ring well now. He's got a bit of a weak guard, it's a high guard, but it isn't overly strong, the guard, and he does get drawn into a bit of a fight at times, which, like I say, does play into Curiel's game completely. Nontshinga is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Curiel will win via TKO in round 4. in my opinion, I think Curiel's probably going to be able to go on the front foot again, and I think Nontshinga's probably going to let him with that lack of kind of physical pressure from Nontshinga. I think Curiel's just going to be allowed to sit on the front foot again and be able to get another stoppage again. Maybe not quite so dramatic, but I think it's going to happen again, and I can see it happening again. And then possible big fights if then he could go on to fight next is just like I say, the doors being opened for him. And then opponents like Edwards is being talked about. I don't know if he's willing to go back up to flyweight, Curiel, but there's a bigger fight there for Edwards, or if Edward wants to come down to light flyweight. Canizales, he's just fought Taraji in a very close fight. That could make for a very good fight. Or Taraji himself, WBA Super and WBC champion, could make for a great fight as well. And like I say, opens doors, opens opportunities, especially if he goes and gets a stoppage here as well. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.